Welcome back to the channel. I guess the moment has come to take a serious look at this front cover, and we'll see where we're at, because this and the oil pump are the next thing on the Holley list. Supposed to look for all these gaskets. That all looks fine. We actually have some prep work on this front cover. So we need to take VCT valve off of the old front cover and transfer it to here. Looks like we need to install water necks, so on. And they say to put the water pump on before you put it on the engine. So I have spent some time cleaning up the mating surfaces on here, getting this nice and clean. I started with a buck knife to scrape the heavy bits of silicone off of it. I did the underside as well, where we're going to put the oil pan on. Then I went over it very gently with some light Scotch-Brite with brake clean to get this genuinely clean. Then just before we seal it up, I'll run over it with a fresh shop towel and some brake clean just to make sure it's totally clean before we seal it up. I've inspected this new front cover from Holley. I've blown out all the passages. It doesn't have a lot of tiny little passages, and it's only coolant in them. It all seems nice and clean. So our next step here is going to be to transfer a few components from the old front cover to the new one. Namely, the variable cam stuff and the cam position sensor. So let's start with that. Apparently those three are all the same. Let's pop that out. Pop this out. On the new one, I'm going to put that on there. And I think I'm just going to get a tiny little bit of assembly lube or engine oil and put on this O-ring just to be sure we don't damage it. Let's put a little bit on there. Wipe that around. That can actually move around a little bit. I'd like this to be as centered as possible, I think. I'll snug that. And I'm going to give this 10 Newton meters, which is about what every bolt like this in this system gets. So and the next thing will be this cam position sensor. Let's switch that over. Pull that out. Again, I'm just going to give this just a tiny bit of oil on this O-ring. Pop that in. This bolt has a different head diameter, but I think it's the same size bolt. So we're going to give it 10 Newton meters as well. Okay, I think we're done with that old front cover, so I set it aside. I have this Holley heater adapter kit. It's got a long tube here which goes into the top of the engine and provides the heater feed. And then on the front cover, it includes a fitting like this, which is a big pipe thread fitting, which threads in here. And that provides the heater return. So this looks like it's probably not that easy of a fitting to get in after the cover's on. So we better put that on now. They say use Loctite 567. I prefer pipe fitter thread tape or gas fitter tape. Tends to work better, doesn't run away. You do have to be careful not to end up with tape inside the engine. But if you did get a little piece of Teflon tape in the water passage, it's probably not the end of the world. Now, one of the secrets to using tape is you wrap it around the threads the opposite way that you're going to turn it in. Give that a couple wraps. So then when we thread this in, it's not peeling back the tape. It's going with the tape. And always try to leave a little bit open on the end so that you don't get tape inside the part. Now, I don't actually know what size this fitting is. I tried inch, it's bigger than that. I tried 1 1/8, it's smaller than that. So it's possibly some Chinese metric size. So they say finger tight, then 2 to 3 rounds. Well, probably like with any pipe thread deal, it's tapered. You'll feel it start to tighten up. That's probably pretty good. So now we got our fitting on there. And I'm going to put the rest of this heater set aside. It's kind of an expensive accessory, but especially if I go with the Holley low profile intake, I'll definitely need that. And they say put the water pump on first. So I guess we'll go ahead and do that. Probably makes it a little bit more awkward to handle the front cover, but I suspect it's a little bit more awkward putting the water pump on if you don't. Now this is a GM gasket. It's not marked for either side. Put that in place. And the water pump, of course, has a little place for the dowel and a place for the holes. So if you can line the holes up with the holes in the pump pulley, then you got a reasonable chance of getting this in place. Why this little gasket wants to pop out, does it? Okay, I think we're on that. We'll get all of these started. And I'm going to bolt these in a crosswise pattern just to try and keep everything straight. All right, and then that says 85 inch-pounds. Do not over tighten. I'm sure. All right, water pump is installed. Oil pump drive adapter and low profile bushing. That step's already done. So that's our new GM style oil pump. It's actually a little greasy in there. It's possible that it was primed, I don't know. And on this oil pump, this can be accessed from outside the pan. It's the pressure tube, there's a pressure spring in there so you can adjust the pump pressure. And this is the transfer tube they're talking about, which comes pre-inserted in the oil pump. All right, this is the pan side, this is the pump side. And the advice I received was to pour some goop, 2050 or something, in the pump in order to try and get a pre-prime on it. This is the feed side, this is the pressure side. Let's pour a little 2050 in here. I'll turn that over a little bit. Well, if I turn this a little bit until I get a little oil coming into the pressure side, we're going to say we have a sort of bench prime, maybe. I could even probably use this. Yeah, okay. Right, so I turned that enough to get oil coming through onto the pressure side there. That's good. We're going to put our drive mandrel back on. The flat side facing out. Then we're going to put our pump on here. And we're going to push that back all the way. All right, there we go. And we got clearance there. That's why we needed that low profile bolt. Then I guess we'll go ahead and sort out the hardware we need for the front cover. And one last wipe down and then put it on. Maybe just a quick look at this. You can see that this pump is pushed all the way back so that this sort of lip on the front of the mandrel protrudes a little bit. That pump is all the way back. And then around the back here, down in here is where that low profile bolt is. That was what it required for oil pump clearance. And I have left the transfer tube out. We're going to do like Holley says and put that in the pan and then try and push it up into the pump that way. And we've got a little prime, and you can see a little bit of stuff dripping out of there. So now what we're going to do is put the front cover on. Once we've got the front cover on, we can put a seal in the front cover. Then we have to put this balancer on, and the balancer butts up against here tight and holds all of this stuff tight to the front of the motor. So that has to be all tightened up before we can finish everything up. Then once everything is tightened up there, we can torque up these 4 bolts to the front cover which hold the oil pump. But if you did that in advance, you might end up with a situation where the oil pump was pulled forward and then possibly pinched on the balancer. I'm sure that's the reason why they tell you to do it in the sequence they tell you. Here's our front cover. Now there are a couple of dowel locations here, here, and here, which help with the lineup. I have put, according to Holley's instructions, a tiny bit of lubrication on each of the O-rings. I've transferred all the sensors. Let's maybe put one of these bolts through here and we'll start trying to get this in place. Well, it snapped right into the dowels. Most of it is held in with these M8 30mm bolts. There are a few specials though, so I think it's best to get it kind of hung on here with bolts that are for sure right. Well, it snapped in real easy. Went on those dowels just fine. I get a few more of these that are for sure the right bolts. Then I'm going to look at my sheet here and figure out which ones are special. That one's not the most accessible, I can tell you that much. 30mm socket head, that goes in there. 100mm socket head, that goes in there. 70mm flange head here. I can tell you their picture doesn't look exactly the same. Like the picture of the cover in this diagram doesn't look exactly the same. Then the 60 looks like it goes in here. And that's the specials. So it says torque them to 18 foot-pounds. And it does not give a torque sequence. So I think maybe what I'm going to do here is first just snug them all. Those are all snugged. And then I think, even though we're not at the step where we're going to adjust this oil pump, I'm going to just see if I can, oh yeah, I can move that. It looks like those will all line up probably. Kind of start in the center and work our way around maybe. In order to install the seal, I think what I'm going to actually do here is use the original crank bolt. So I got my seal installer tool, and I'm going to use this original crank bolt. The seal is not going to present very much resistance. So even though we're actually using the crank threads for this, I don't think we're going to run into too much trouble. Lubricate the seal. We'll put it on the installer tool, kind of get it started in there, and then see if we can't suck that on. We're going to lubricate the inside of this seal, and then I think, even though it doesn't say lubricate the outside, I'm going to put just a thin film on the outside to reduce friction when we install it. Something like that. Rubber side out. Then we're going to slide that over the mandrel there on the seal installer tool. And we'll kind of put that up against the block. Then I'm going to stick our crank bolt in. And you know, we got a fair number of threads engaged before anything happened there. Let's start gently pressing on this. And it's going to flush up to the block, and the tool should stop. Okay. Take our crank bolt out, pull our seal installer tool off. Looks good. So now we got a seal. The next thing is to see what we could do about trying to get this crank pulley on. Every time I go to use my balancer installer, it never fits. I don't know what the problem is, but in this case, the issue is that the threads in this crankshaft are really deep. So, most guys I have seen end up making a tool. This is an old crank bolt. It's had the head cut off, and then it's had actually an SAE bolt or piece of threaded rod welded to the end of it and then ground down. It works by using the original washer and a nut. Threads in there, bottoms out, and it will allow you to suck the new balancer on. Apparently there are tools made that will fit this, but like I said, most of the guys I've seen end up with something like this. Now if you are going to try and make one or get something, this is a metric 14 thread on here, and it's a fine thread. Not sure what the pitch is, but it's the fine pitch, number of threads per inch. And you could make that with just a long piece of threaded rod if you could come up with the metric threaded rod. Anyway, let's lubricate this crank pulley. We're ready to go on here, just with some clean engine oil. We're going to take our homemade tool. I want to thread that in all the way to the bottom, so that's bottomed out in the crank. That way we're pulling against the maximum number of threads, and we're not going to pull the threads out of the crank. Then I'm going to pick up this 19-pound monstrosity. Now it doesn't matter which way you put this on, it's internally balanced. Let's give that a little push. We'll start threading that on. Check that it's actually pressing in. Looks like it is. We might have run out of threads there, I suspect. We're most of the way on here. That's as far as the special tool will go. This thing takes a ridiculous amount of torque, but we should be okay with a new bolt here. Remember, on the old bolt, I marked the head with yellow paint stick so we know that it's already been stretched. This is a brand new one. This is actually the one that came from Ford with the balancer. I'm going to put that in, and you can see we can thread that in a long way. Now, in order to get any kind of torque on here at all, we're going to have to lock the engine in place. That can be done with a flex plate locking tool, or what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to put a heavy grade 8 bolt through the flex plate, and that'll hold it in place. It's a trick that works. Lots of guys have used it. Should be fine. So let's go ahead and do that. Tighten that up. And when this engine goes to turn, it should jam in here, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to finish seating this with the bolt. Now we're jammed there. And we should feel this tighten up. Okay, let's go to our first step, which is 66 foot-pounds. So that should be enough to be snugged up. We got the big snap-on tech angle here. Now this this stand is never going to hold on to this engine for the full torque. Okay, that should be initially snug. Then we're supposed to back that off 360 degrees just to loosen it off. Then our next step is 129 foot-pounds plus 150 degrees, which is ridiculous. Okay, so we're backed off, loosen that up. Now, we gotta figure out a way to get this engine braced so that we can actually apply this torque. We're gonna put a lot of force on this balancer, trying to tighten it. a lot. So we've got to have something to hold it. I'm just one guy. I'm very worried that this kind of light duty stand that I have will actually break when I put that much force on it. So I've kind of got this engine sort of re-rigged onto the pallet that it came on. It's tied down fairly solidly. It's on the engine crane here, which ought to keep it from, breaking free in any event. And I'm going to give it a try. Step 2, 129 foot-pounds. Then plus 150. Okay, so it was backed off. We're not actually touching anything here. That's all fine. Got our stop in place. There's 129 foot-pounds. Now we have to go another 150 degrees. So let's put this in angle mode. 150 degrees. That's 228.5 foot-pounds. Holy smokes. Job done. Well, let's re-rig it on the stand. Okay, oil pump bolts are next. With them finger tight, rotate engine one round at crank damper. So we got these balance deals up. We got our lock out. Oh, by the way, I unplugged this connector here. Let me just plug that back in before I forget. There we go. That's fine. We'll rotate the thing full circle. Okay, so everything's rotating clean. Then we're going to tighten them evenly until we get metal to metal. Pump touches metal to metal. This has to be done with a crowfoot. Let's put this at that's 5 foot-pounds. That's 5 foot-pounds. I don't suppose it hurts to do this a couple times. We'll rotate this again. One full rotation. Then evenly torque them to 18. Well, let's go to 10. There's 10. There's 10. Let's try another spin of the engine. Rotate it twice. Let's go 15. 15. Rotate it again. Last step is 18. 18. Okay. Now let's rotate this a couple times. That all looks good. That all looks good. I think that concludes the front cover. We need to reconnect this too. What do you think you do to keep this from interfering with stuff? Oh boy. To figure that out. The real payday on this whole project is the Holley oil pan, because it's way shallower. So we're finally ready to start trying to put this on the engine. First things first though, I'm going to give it a good wash down with brake clean and shop air to make sure that there are no pieces of debris in any of these little passages, because it's not just a pan, it also has a bunch of passages in it. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, for once I got a part that looks like it was clean. I didn't see anything nasty come out of it. So I think we're cleaned up here and we're ready to start the assembly process on this pan. There's a bunch of assembly to do on this oil pan. The first thing that would normally go in is this baffle, but I bought this race baffle with these doors, which is probably a good idea for a drag race car or even a road race car. This is going to go in place of this, so we're not going to use this. We got that to put in. We've got an oil pickup tube to put in, and we've got this windage tray to put in. Then there's a bunch of gaskets and stuff here to go on as well. Let's start with this. It's kind of got to get fished in here, and I guess we'll check that those doors are operational. Everything looks good on them. That all looks fine. Now, these little bolts that come with it, there's M612, but there's also M615. So don't mix these up. These ones here are M612. And we start out with just 3 of them, because this one is going to have a long bolt go through it from the windage tray. I'll try to organize this so everything is centered as well as it can be, especially on that last hole. Doesn't say anything about Loctite on these bolts. It just says 85 inch-pounds, so 85 inch-pounds. Okay, the next step actually is to put the block-off plate on. And this is supposed to use M618 socket heads. This block-off plate doesn't matter which way you go, whether you go this way or the other way, they're the same. So we're going to put in oil filter adapter, the drain plug here, the bypass. I don't think any of this is too exciting. I'm just going to put it on time lapse for that. Okay, we're going to put the pickup tube in. First, we've got to put this little gasket in here. We'll get our pickup tube. You know what? Before I put this in, I'm just going to take and blow this out too. I'm glad I took the time on blowing this out, because actually I washed it with some brake clean as well as shop air, and there was what looked like quite a bit of fine metallic looking dust came out of it. So I think you better add that to your list to do. Okay, so this should slip in here, slip on there, and this is the place where we use our M6, I guess they're 16, not 15, flange heads. So let's get those started. Down in here we use an M16 12 millimeter flange head to hold this pickup to the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to put that in loose for now. We'll tighten these up. And they're supposed to get 85 inch-pounds. There's 85. That's 85. Okay. That looks good and solid. Then our next step is to put this windage tray on. Now, when I looked at this windage tray, the fitment isn't fantastic. It does fit, but it's not fantastic. The first things first, all of these are M612s, except this one, which is this long M695 and this sleeve. So let's see if we can fish that in, and we'll maybe see if we can get that to start first. Okay, well, that's roughly started. And the rest of these 5 are M6 by 12s. Like I said, the lineup on this is not actually that great. So you got to be prepared for a little bit of a struggle here. I'll snug them all up by hand. Give those 85 inch-pounds. I'll just give a quick recheck. Somehow we got one of these bolts left. I haven't missed any though. The last thing is to put the gaskets in, and I think if I'm not mistaken, one of these gaskets is a Ford gasket. That fits no problem. The other two are GM gaskets, which are oval. One fits in there no problem, and the other has to be kind of rounded in order to fit in here. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we can look at putting this pan on. This Holley kit came with a new dipstick tube. This is the old one that came off, and you can see it's got quite a bend in it. This one is much straighter. I'm not quite sure how it goes on. There isn't a lot of instructions for it, but I can tell you it looks just a little shorter. If I bring this up so you can see at the sealing surface there, this is the new one, this is the old one. So you can see from the sealing surface, the new one here is, I don't know, an inch shorter or something. And this is more like the style of stick that was on, like a 97 Cobra. I pulled the old dipstick out. I think I might put the new dipstick in and just kind of see how it lines up with this pan before I get to committing to RTV on the pan. All right, we're finally ready to try this pan. There are a couple of things that you have to pay close attention to. Number one, you got to get this oil transfer tube in here. Now, I have lubricated this part. I've lubricated the O-rings. I've got the oil transfer tube seated in the pan. That's the way Holley says to do it. Then there are dowels which have to line up, and they line up like here and here, I think. Here and here on that side. So I've made sure the dowels are pushed all the way through. There's not a lot of time to mess around. So I'm going to cut these little tabs off. I'm going to put the RTV around on the pan. I'm going to put a dollop of RTV in each of these corners here where there could be a sealing issue. And then we'll see if we can't gently get the pan put in place while capturing the oil transfer tube and the two dowel locations. There's 19 bolts around the outside. We'll get them put in and torqued down, and it's 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to try and do them in a couple stages. There's no time to mess around here, so wish me luck, I guess. I'm going to use a razor knife to cut these flush. I'm not going to apply any force, just cut them flush. Okay, then we'll go ahead and do the pan. Then I'll put the dollops in these corners. Then we'll try and carefully get it seated. There's a couple places where these lips seem kind of thin, so I'm just going to go maybe around the outside as well. Now we got to put a good dollop in here at this joint, here at this joint. That dowel is lining up. That dowel lined up. All right. It's on the dowels. It looks like it will squish down on that transfer tube. Now there's 19 of these, so don't forget, there's a couple that go in from the top. And there's a terrible one here. I don't know how we're going to torque this one up. And there should be one more on the other side here. Yeah. Okay, so you're supposed to go 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to try and run them in. Kind of a round from the center motion here. All right, I'm going to do this in a couple stages, I think. Let's go to 10 foot-pounds. Actually, let's go half. We'll go 9. We're starting to get a squish here. That's 9. So we're going to have that RTV pretty well squished. Everything looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and go 18. Let's say that's 18. I don't know. That completes the basic upfit of this Godzilla engine. We switched out the cam to the Brian Tooley Racing Truck Norris cam. We put a cam phaser limiter in the cam phaser. We changed the front cover to the Holley front cover. We changed the oil pump to the Holley G-Rotor style or GM style oil pump. We changed this pan to this shallow Holley pan and included the race baffle in the pan. We've added the Ford Racing thick balancer to the system. And we've gotten rid of a few extraneous things like the factory motor mounts, which we don't need, and the factory manifolds, exhaust manifolds, which we don't need. I'm going to put some spark plugs back in here to seal it up. turn the motor back over and push it off to the side because I've got some actual shop work we got to do, so we got to have this cleaned up. Thanks for watching. I'm going to put a couple videos up around my head here that YouTube thinks you will like. If you get a chance, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time.